Hello everyone, in this video we'll be talking about a function known as goal seeking. So we'll be talking about goal seek first and then scenario manager and data tables. So all of these options are found in the data ribbon of Microsoft Excel under the what if function over here under the forecast subsection. Within this we have three drop down boxes: number 1 scenario manager, number 2 goal seek, and number 3 data tables. And they're all very powerful functions, but what we're going to start off with is goal seek. All of these options show data in a certain way, and it's often working backwards from an answer to get to the value that you want, or it might be showing different scenarios of inputs to show respective outputs of those inputs, so sensitivity analysis. So it's doing analysis on the relationship between inputs and outputs, basically, and trying to fill in those gaps. So let's start off with the goal seek function. So what the goal seek function does is it allows you, knowing an answer, to calculate what a potential input was. So for example, consider this scenario over here. We've got a bottling plant, and its P&L is calculated as the difference between variable revenue, which is cost price per unit to the public, times number of packs sold. That's their revenue. And their cost is the cost of production per pack. We've split it by bottles and bottles per pack, times number of units sold. So that's the cost of sale, and the difference is profit. Now we know, let's say we want to figure out how many packs we need to sell to get a profit of 20,000, or let's say what profit price do we need to increase our pack sale by to get our profit to 25,000. So these are the kinds of questions that you need to ask where a goal seek scenario would be applicable. So let's start off with the first one. So how many packs do we need to sell or increase our sale by to get our profit up from 11,000 to 20,000? Now, because there's so many variables in this equation, it can be a little bit hard to figure out. So what people might be doing is just doing trial and error. So they might be typing 600. Okay, that's only changed it a little bit. What about 900? Okay, that's getting pretty close. What about 870? It's a bit too low, and 880, a bit too low still. So that's basically what Excel will be doing, but thousands of times very quickly to get the right answer. So that's how goal seek works. So let's press what if analysis goal seek. It'll give you three options. It'll say, first of all, set a certain cell to a value, and then by changing a certain cell. So in this instance, what we want is our profit, so this cell down here, to be equal to 20,000. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to change one input cell, and that's the number of packs sold. So as soon as we press enter, what's going to happen is Excel is going to do exactly what we just did. It's going to plug in every possible number in here to get as close as possible to 20,000 profit. So let's press enter, and now you can see it all running in the background, and we can see it says goal seeking with C13 has found a solution, and we're at that exact net profit. So the number of packs that we have to sell is 887.31145. So that's the benefit of using goal seek, is that it gets a very exact number that if you're doing trial and error would take a long time to figure out. Okay, so there's our net profit. So let's try another scenario. Let's discuss the situation where our packs have fallen to 200, and we're going to try and recoup that by increasing the cost of the packs that we're selling to get up to, say, 15,000 net profit. So in this instance, what we're going to do is we're going to go what if analysis goal seek. We want to set cell. So we're still going to do the same one, so that's going to be 20,000, and we're going to change the pack sale price this time. So we're going to press OK. It's going to test all the numbers. We're going to have to increase our packs to a very high amount. It's up to $120 per pack, but if we market it as a premium product, we can get back up to that 20,000. Okay, one last example. What I want to do now is, let's say we want to reduce our sale cost by, let's say, 30%. So let's figure out what that is quickly. Oh. So let's say we want this to be our pack sale cost. Let's just put that as a value over there. So how many extra bottles per pack do we need to fit in to get our profit up to, say, 20,000 again? So one last example. What if goal seek, we're going to change the number of bottles per pack to value. We're going to set sell down here to 20,000 by changing number of bottles per pack. And then, okay, so that's actually not going to work based on the numbers in here. So in certain situations, this isn't going to work. Just have a look at your formulas in that situation. But that's pretty much how goal seek works. It's basically just trial and error, but it's a really powerful and quick way of doing it. So let's move on to the next cool what if analysis feature. So we're going to be talking about scenario manager. So a scenario manager is a way of testing different scenarios over here and then comparing which one we like best. So let's go back to our original data over here. So let's say we've got our formula working, so we know that our total revenue is that times pack sold, our cost per bottles per pack, so our cost per pack is that times that, and the total cost of sales is the number of packs sold times the cost per pack. So that's our cost of goods sold. So let's say this is our formulas are working, but we want to compare 3 different products. Let's say Coca-Cola, Fanta, and an alcoholic beverage. And each of them have different sale costs. You know, you might have alcohol higher, you might have expected packs sold maybe lower for the more expensive one, but higher for the cheaper one. And then your cost per bottle, you know, Coca-Cola might be cheaper, you might be able to fit more Coca-Cola bottles than Fanta bottles and so forth. I want to compare all those different scenarios and come out with a profit over here. So, I mean, one option we could do is just put all the values across in this way. But we're going to do it a different way today. We're going to use the scenario manager. And there's some benefits to using the scenario manager. First of all, it keeps all this area clean. You might not have room in your Excel file for this. You might be in a model where you don't want to build that out there. Or you might just want to do a quick analysis based on an existing model and just build it into the back end without actually showing it to anyone. So there's a few different reasons why you'd want to use the scenario manager to do this. Okay, so how we use this is we press scenario manager up here, and then what we want to do is we want to add our first scenario. So let's say Coca-Cola is the first comparative product, and the next thing is we want to select all the input cells which affect it. Now I've highlighted all of the input cells as is best practice, so all of these yellow ones, so I'm going to select all of those, comma, select those. Okay, so these are all the cells that I want to change. Now you can add a comment if you want, so you could say cola variables, and then you can prevent changes or you can untick that and so forth. Let's press OK, and now it's going to prompt us to insert certain values that we've selected. So the pack sale cost, so we're going to say Coca-Cola's a fair bit cheaper, so we're going to go $19.99, but we're expecting to sell more of them, so we're going to go $7.50. And then item 3 is the cost per bottle, so it's a fair bit lower, so it's 99 cents per bottle. And we can fit 10 packs because they're constructed in a very efficient way. Okay, so that's okay. So now we've got our first scenario over here, cola. So let's add our second one. We're going to go Fanta. Still the same cells by default that we've selected, so let's press OK. I'm going to type Fanta in there. I'm going to untick prevent changes, and then okay. So with Fanta, we're going to sell these for a cost of $29.99. We're expecting to sell 650 of these. The cost per bottle is quite cheap, but it's $1.29, a little bit more cheaper, a little bit more expensive than cola. And we can fit 8 bottles per pack in here. So let's press OK. So now I've got cola and Fanta. Now let's add our last example. We're going to call this alcoholic drink, and then we're going to keep those cells as is. You can see they're highlighted. Alcoholic, untick prevent changes, press OK. Okay, so the sale value we're going to say is $59.99 because this is a bit more expensive, being alcohol. We're going to sell a few less, let's say $4.50 because they cost more. And it costs slightly more to make them as well, so let's leave it as $3.49. And we can probably fit, let's say 10 in the pack as well. So let's go OK. Okay, so now we've got our 3 different scenarios. You can add as many as you want. The next step is to actually, we can show the different outputs by selecting one, pressing show, and you'll see what the output will be. So we can straight away see, okay, Coca-Cola, we're looking at a profit of 7,500. Fanta is a profit of 12,000. Alcoholic beverage is 11,000. But let's say we realized a mistake in the Coca-Cola one. We realized that the pack sold is probably actually going to be $8.50. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit this one. We're going to press edit over here. Okay, and then I realized that I'm expecting to sell 850 of these. So let's just update that and then show the variables again. So you'll see that this is now updated over here. So let's say I accidentally close out of this and oh no, I've lost my values. You know, I can type over the top of this and say 0, 1 and so forth. But let's say I want to bring back the Coca-Cola after making these changes. Let's go back to Scenario Manager and then show, and all of a sudden my values are back. So these are never going to go away. They're all on the back end. So this is another good use of Scenario Manager, is if you just want to show the model and play around with it. Let's say show your boss the key profit drivers of it. Maybe we can come up with our own product and say, okay, so what should we put our sale cost at? Should we do $19.99? And then the boss is saying, okay, well, what's the competitors look like? We can quickly show him and say, okay, well, I know that Coca-Cola looks like this. They've got a sale price of $19.99. Fanta's got $29.99, and alcoholic drinks $59.99. So how about we, for our product, do somewhere in between and do $30.99? So that could be another good use of that. It's just a very dynamic model. You can use it in your discussions, etc. Okay. So the other cool thing about Scenario Manager is you can actually do this summary page. So if we press summary over here, and maybe we want to do our summary results down here, and press OK. Just give it a minute to run. And now the scenario summary has generated on a completely new tab, and we can see what our current values are, what our competitors' values are, Coca-Cola, Fanta, and alcoholic drink, and it's all in a particular order like so. So it's a good way of comparing input variables around different scenarios. You can also expand and see the comments made over here, and so forth. So an interesting function. It can be useful in certain scenarios, but it is more important that you're just aware of it and you have the ability to use it if you wish. So that's 2 out of the 3 what-if analysis. So let's go to the last one, which is data tables, which is my favorite of the 3. Okay, so I've got here quite a complicated model open, and I'm on the output page. I've got an input page with various assumptions. We've got calculations over here and so forth. This is the output page, so it's not where you put any inputs. It's more where you see the results of what the model is based on certain assumptions. So what we generally do with models is because they're so sensitive to certain input assumptions, what we do is we test the assumptions, we test the sensitivity of assumptions, because there might be some assumptions which have a far greater impact on the model than some other ones. For example, the exit multiple, or it might be the interest rate, or it might be the revenue growth assumptions, or the EBITDA growth assumptions, or a number of clinics that businesses that we're going to acquire each year, or the base case, upside, downside, and so forth. So these are all sensitivity tests over here. And what we're doing is we're testing based on one input into the model. For example, whether we're using the base case assumptions, the upside assumptions, or the downside assumptions, this is what the IRR is going to be. So in the base case, it's going to be 16.3%. In the upside, it's going to be 20.1%. And the downside is going to be 13.1%. So clearly, straight away, number one, we can see the different options and the output on a page in a single location. So that's great. And the other benefit is we can see where certain assumptions have a far greater impact. For example, testing the inclusion of acquisitions in the model, if we exclude it, it's going to be 11.3%. If we include it, it's going to be 16.3% IRR. So compare that to when we're comparing base case to upside, that's only a 3.8% difference, whereas the difference between exclude and include is a 5%. So this is clearly a far more sensitive input multiple. So that's the other great benefit of having these sensitivities. Now, we can do this in a table. We can just hard code the numbers based on what the output is. But what we can't do is if we change another assumption, for example, we might change our EBITDA rate, number of acquisitions, when they come on board, the EBITDA percentage of a clinic, the CapEx spend, and so forth. So if we update all that, what we're going to have to do is rerun the model, put the output in the table. It's very slow and cumbersome. You might forget to actually make a change in there somewhere, and all of a sudden you're going to have a whole lot of issues. So this is why we use data tables and why it's my favorite of the three functions to use. So a data table is a live extraction of data using different inputs. So how it works is we start off by testing a single assumption. So let's test the exit multiple, for example, and that features in. So let's follow that through using control left open bracket to M91. So there's an input value over here. So we're going to calculate EBITDA in 10 years. Apply our exit multiple, that's going to calculate our exit cash inflow for the business. Because if we change that to 14, for example, it's going to update slow, but our cash outflow is going to drop to 516 million instead of the 687 million that it was, the 590 million that it was before. So what that's doing is we've got our base case over here. We're linking that in. So you can see that is linking into the input assumption that we've currently got in the model down here. Now the next thing is we want to link in the output. So that's linking into cell M100. So the output is down here. We're saying the IRR based on that is 11.9%. So input, output. And because these are actually linked in to the place in the model, this is telling Excel where we actually want to pull the output and where we want to test the input. So Excel now knows that if we want to put a series of different inputs across to the right, note that these are all hard-coded numbers and then we can change them if we want. So for example, we could change that to a 17 and it'll update. So Excel knows to plug in all those values into that cell and extract whatever the value would be if we had typed in that number out here. So the next step after linking in those two cells is to put all your input values across to the right. Now you don't need to put anything in these columns, in these cells over here. So originally it would have looked like something like this: linked to input, linked to output, and then hard-coded assumptions that we want to test. So we want to test the the exit multiple at 12.5, which would be lower, all the way through to 18.5, which would be higher. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is select all of that data range over here, and then go to what if analysis, data table. Now it's going to give us two different options. It wants to know where the input cell is, and it gives you two options because you may have this table going across horizontally, like we have in this situation, or you might have the same data table going vertically. It really just depends how you want to format it. So let's go back to our original example with the bottling P&L. Now, let's say we want to visually represent what the impact on net profit will be at all the different, let's say, price points over here. So let's start off with, say, $9.99, and then adding, say, $5 after that. Okay, so I want to show at each of these different price points. So let's bring it up even further. what is my net profit going to be? Profit, let's say okay, so I want to see what my net profit is going to be at all of those different price points. So using data tables, I can do this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to link into my current sale price over here, and I'm going to do my output linking into this cell, and I'm going to link into it. I'm not going to type what the value is, so Excel actually knows where I am pulling the data. Okay, so once I've told Excel where those values are, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select the entire range. I'm going to go what if analysis data table. I'm going to go column input cells, because this time the table is vertically aligned, and the input cell, I'm actually going to tell them within the calculation where do I want to put each of these values. So I want to put it right here for pack sale cost. So let's press enter, give it a moment while it calculates, and now Excel within each of these cells will populate it with a value. Now this is the cool thing, because you'll see it's an array formula and it's a table formula, so this isn't really a formula that most people are familiar with. And what that's doing is it's basically substituting each of these values into that cell, and it's also live, so we can change another thing. We can change another variable in here. So let's say we change this to 400. What's going to happen is all of these are also going to update, because it's all live, it's all connected. It's a really good way of testing the sensitivity of values. And the other thing you can do, now that you've got this data, is actually chart it out. So using the information we learned from the intermediate course, select the data, go insert recommended charts, have a look at what we could choose. Let's go to all charts. So potentially an XY scatter might be good. Something like this, or a line chart could be good, just so we can see what our different prices are. Let's insert that in there. And now we can bring this to our manager or our boss and show them our findings, which is, there's an exponential increase based on the cost price. We should be trying to go for a premium methodology, because at the 89 price point we're looking at around just over $100,000 profit and so forth. So and anywhere between 39 to 69, it's not a great difference. We're talking between 20 and 40,000, but each $10 or $5 increase thereafter exponentially increases our profit. So something we should be looking at. So another cool tool, which concludes our look at the what if analysis functions. Really powerful options there, which you should incorporate in your modeling and Excel work papers going forward.